The impeachment inquiry goes public this week, but even before open hearings start Wednesday, partisan clashes have been playing out with House Republicans pushing to call two key witnesses of their own, Hunter Biden and the whistleblower.
If they don't call the whistleblower in the House, this thing is dead on arrival in the Senate.
But House Democrats, who are trying to make the case for impeachment as clear as possible, say that is not going to happen.
We don't want to revisit conspiracy theories. If people have relevant information to this investigation and the president's conduct, of course, we want to hear from them.
This is a very simple, straightforward act. The president broke the law. This is a very strong case of bribery.
The quid pro quo, in my judgment, is a red herring.
There's always contingencies on aid.
That contingencies argument sounding similar to the statement made by Acting Chief of Staff Mick Mulvaney just last month.
I have news for everybody. Get over it. There's going to be political influence in foreign policy.
Mulvaney, who later tried to walk that back, skipped out on his scheduled testimony Friday, defying a congressional subpoena. He's now hoping to join a lawsuit set to decide whether Congress has the authority to force him to testify. And as for Trump?
Well, they shouldn't be having public hearings. This is a hoax. This is just like the Russian witch hunt. This is just a continuation. I'm
joined by Dan Primack, business editor at Axios. Dan, good to see you. Lylah Alphonse is managing editor for U.S. News and World Report. Good to see you, too. So neither of you are around for the Nixon hearings. I was, unfortunately. All three of us were around for Clinton. Is there evidence that all of America is going to stop as it did then, or is this just more of polarized Washington, just in a different venue, Lylah?
I don't think America's going to stop for this. We binge watch our TV now, and I think it's just too drawn out. We've heard this episode before. We heard it when things were leaked and in opening statements. We heard it when they released the transcripts. And now it's a third chance to kind of move this inquiry into the court of public opinion so that you can see people's hand gestures and their tone of voice and decide whether you agree with it or not.
Well, that changes everything if you're watching, but you sound like you don't think...
I'm not sure that a lot of people are going to tune in for it. They've heard what's going to be said already.
You're nodding in agreement?
Yeah, I am. I mean, think about the last time we as a country all stopped to watch something. It was recent, though, right? It was Kavanaugh hearings, right? And everybody did, but the reason I think we all watched it was we didn't know what was going to happen, right? What was she going to say? What was he going to say? How were they going to react? In this case, as Lylah said, we've seen the testimony. This is going to be a repeat. The one difference is going to be you're going to have Republican questioners go much, much more aggressively.
Yeah, I want to get to the Republicans in a minute. Let's start with the Democrats, though. Nancy Pelosi has put a huge amount of trust in Adam Schiff, despite the fact that the first of these hearings, Adam Schiff, I would argue, totally disgraced himself and the procedure when he tried to liken Donald Trump to a mobster. Here, if you missed that, here's a little bit of Congressman Schiff at the time.
In not so many words, this is the essence of what the president communicates. We've been very good to your country, very good. No other country has done as much as we have. But you know what? I don't see much reciprocity here. I hear what you want. I have a favor I want from you, though. And I'm going to say this only 7 times, so you better listen good. I want you to make up dirt on my political opponent, understand lots of it.
Much of a dramatic reading either. Should the Democrats be nervous?
Oh, they should absolutely be nervous, not just because of this, but look at the hearings with Robert Mueller. I will say my colleague Elena Trine reported yesterday that Pelosi is indeed nervous. She does want Schiff doing this, not Jerry Nadler, because remember, it was Nadler in the judiciary.
Well, he lost control of the Corey Lewandowski thing. It was
absolutely lost control. And the message that apparently has been given to Democrats is be serious as F. That is the message we have heard over and over again.
You know, it seems to me the Republicans have already outflanked the Democrats doing this. I assume the Democrats want to accede to some of the demands of the Republicans. Jim McGovern from the House Rules Committee chair was here saying we're giving them even more rights than the minority party had in the Clinton-Nixon thing. But brilliantly, I think the Republicans have asked for 2 witnesses that there's no chance that they'll get, Hunter Biden and the whistleblower. And I would bet to the average busy American, well, it makes sense. Maybe Hunter Biden, since he's the middle of this thing, should be there. Yeah, the whistleblower started this thing. I'm not sure they're hearing the argument that we don't need him anymore because we have people who've been on the call.
I agree with you. I think there's a fundamental misunderstanding of what impeachment is. A lot of people think this is the trial. This is not. This is the investigation. They feel that the president's not getting a chance to really face his accusers. That's not when this happens. That's in the Senate. So I think that this was a pretty good move on their part, calling people who the public might think really deserve to be heard without really acknowledging whether they've already heard what they have to say or not.
So even if that was a good move, will they lose the public if they behave like they did when they tried to storm the secure facility, the so-called SCIF, the abominable behavior of Corey Lewandowski, who I think should have been held in contempt on the spot and led away by the sergeant of arms? There's going to be that kind of theater,
I think there's going to be, and that's why the Democrats intentionally have picked the people for this week they have, namely Bill Taylor, who's going to be the first one. First of all, Trump or Pompeo appointee, right? Very serious, very well respected. He's going to hold his ground on this.
50 years in government service starting at West Point.
Republicans are going to have to really thread a really, really tricky needle to try to get him to say something helpful to them.
Well, you know, I've spent a lot of time, as I assume you two have, saying, what are the Republicans going to say? Not what are they going to do? And I assume they'll take their lead from the President of the United States. Here he is. When did he say this? He said this on Friday about EU Ambassador Gordon Sondland. Here's the President.
Let me just say, I hardly know the gentleman, but this is the man who said there was no quid pro quo. And he still says that. And he said that, I said that. And he hasn't changed that testimony.
Personally, hardly knows the guy who gave $1 million to his inauguration. I'd like to not know those people.
A week earlier, he tweeted was a great guy.
Exactly.
But how, you know, how can he say the words, there was no quid pro quo, and he still says that? He, quote, revised his testimony to say the opposite.
The bulk of the people he is speaking directly to don't know what that means and don't care. So there's nothing.
But the Democrats now are using terms like extortion and bribery because they know no one knows what quid pro quo.
That's why there's been this switch. I mean, and a quid pro quo in and of itself is not illegal. The issue is what you were asking for in exchange for what you were going to give. In this case, that's the different issue there. But people in general, he can say there was no quid pro quo, and that will be the reaction, a bunch of mouth gibberish.
So let's talk about the matinee hero, George Conway, married, of course, to Kellyanne Conway. His tweet the other day, Donald Trump, why don't you testify? Are you afraid, as you were with Mueller, that your stable genius couldn't withstand cross-examination under oath? As preposterous as it may seem on its face, does Donald Trump not have enough self-confidence that you can imagine him saying, I want to do this, I want to speak for myself?
I could see him that, but he also has enough lawyers who would be grabbing every limb he has to stop him. Look, he didn't testify, he testified written for Mueller, but he wouldn't sit in a room.
That's a good point.
Refused.
Yeah.
So Margaret Sullivan, who was one of my favorite media people, she is now the media columnist for the Washington Post. She's worried about how the media handles this. She says she's worried that rather than dealing with substance, it's going to be, how's this going to play in the battleground states? That we're going to play up the battles at the hearing, as I just did, between Republicans and Democrats. Do you worry about how we handle this?
I don't worry because how it's handled doesn't really change my job and the way our team is handling things. But I think you're going to see a segment of the media handling it by giving a review of the performance. And you're going to have a segment of the media handling it by saying there wasn't enough substance there or there was too much substance there and really analyzing that. And then you're going to have another segment of the media who's just running polls and looking to see who they think won.
But the reality of this is a political process, right? If Donald Trump is impeached, he doesn't go to prison for this. This isn't a criminal. You know, despite what Trump's people keep saying, you know, you have a right to face your accuser. No, only in a criminal case. The converse of that is this is political, and how it plays in a battleground state is ultimately almost as important as anything else, because that's what this is really ultimately about: is should he stay as president?
Have you seen any indication that any Republicans are going to move here, or they're just going to resign if they're worried about, as Peter King, a veteran New York State Republican, did? Any signs of cracking in any of the Republican ranks at all?
I mean,
so far?
on the Senate, I mean, it's the Senate where it really matters, right? Because the impeachment can get to the Democrats. I mean, maybe Romney. The question is really, would somebody else? Could something else come? Because if one goes down, there could be a domino effect. But no one sees the one.
Of them cracking.
There could be a domino if one stalwart were to
go. Or if several went up front. Maybe Murkowski and Romney. In any case, we'll wait till the hearings. Can we change gears for a second? You interviewed, was it yesterday?
Last night.
The CEO of Uber, and you asked the question about, is it appropriate to have a representative of the Saudi government on your board when they're responsible for the murder of Jamal Khashoggi? Here's the incredible back and forth that followed that question. Here it is.
I think that government said that they made a mistake.
Well, they made a mistake and somebody's dead.
Listen, it's a serious mistake. We've made mistakes too. I think that people make mistakes. It doesn't mean that they can never be forgiven. I think they've taken it seriously.
Now, about an hour later, Uber put out a statement saying, I said something in the moment from him saying, I did not believe when it comes to Jamal Khashoggi, his murder was reprehensible, should not be forgotten. Or excuse, I have to say that's one of the most unbelievable exchanges I've seen in a long time. They made a mistake, and what did you say in response? Well, somebody's dead.
Right.
What was your reaction in the moment?
In the moment, I was surprised. And I think all the questions I asked after that were some version of, really? Is that what you really mean? Not to let him out of it, but because it surprised me. And then not only did he stick with the idea it was a mistake, he doubled down and he referred to the fact that Uber had an accident with self-driving. A woman had been killed in Arizona. Again, that was bad software. Maybe negligently bad software, but that's not the same as an assassination with a bone saw and mutilation.
But how can he not? Saudis are the 5th largest shareholders,
Correct.
from what I understand, in Uber. How could he not know
I have absolutely
it was
no idea.
coming?
He had to have known it was coming. I don't know.
What was your quick reaction?
I was astounded, not just that he went there, but that he didn't pull back and he didn't try to qualify it and he didn't try to explain himself.
Well, can I tell you something you don't understand? Obviously, we all make mistakes.
Oh, my
Lylah,
mistake.
it's nice to see you. Thank you so much. Well done, Dan. That was terrific. Thanks so much, Lylah Alphonse, Dan Primack.